Hey everyone, welcome to Unleash 2025. It's day 2, it's Wednesday. I'm Rona Pierce, guest hosting the podcast. Shout out to our friends at Fountain who are bringing the podcast to you for the next 2 days live right here from their boardroom. We have an incredible lineup of amazing thought leaders, executives, and speakers in the HR and TA space. Let's do this.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host,
Rona Pierce, live from Unleash US in Las Vegas.
Welcome, everyone. It is day 2 of Unleash 2025, and I'm here with Ben Eubanks. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm having a lot of fun. As with anyone here at Unleash, I'm highly caffeinated, ready for the day ahead. So it's been a fun event so far and looking forward to more good stuff coming.
Amazing. So I heard you had a panel yesterday. How did that go?
So yesterday I actually had a workshop of all things. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of energy from the audience. We did some hacking of different TA processes, HR processes that aren't working well. And so the audience got to come in with a problem they had, solve that. And then at the very end, for extra fun, they all pitched out to the group to get a winner picked. And so it was a lot of excitement, a lot of energy in the room. And for me, I kept hearing people like, this is the best way to start it off, just to be thinking about solving real problems.
Cool. Yeah, sounds amazing. So for those of you who don't know, Ben Eubanks is the Chief Research Officer at Lighthouse Research and Advisory. Why? So you've spent many years working on the intersection of people and technology. What interested you in that particular area of HR?
So I knew I wanted to be in HR when I was a kid, even before I knew what it was called. And way back then, I saw the challenges that my parents and their small business, other companies had trying to hire the right people, find them, keep them, all those things. And so I decided I was going to try to do that with my career, and eventually found out there was a thing called HR, and it actually was for that. And so I got my degree in the field, worked in that area for years and loved it so much. And then I stepped over to the research side, and now I get a chance to do research, to gather data on the workforce, the workplace, and help talent, learning, HR leaders solve big problems with that. So the example yesterday of the hackathon was let's take the data and make it very practical and relevant to help them be better tomorrow than they were yesterday.
Amazing. So you've recently done some research on frontline workers, and that's so interesting to me. What anything surprise you? Did any of the insights surprise you? Things that you think companies should be paying more attention to?
Well, those may be two exclusive categories. Some things surprise me and some things they should be paying attention to, and some things are both probably. I'll tell you that one of the things that gets me is the connection or the perception people have of fairness. How about that? So frontline workers are pretty likely, unfortunately, to say that they are not treated as fairly or equitably as someone who's in a corporate role. Someone who's working in an office, they're not getting that same level of treatment. And they feel that. It's painful, it's hard, and that level of distrust or discomfort that comes from that friction that's created is part of what contributes to them leaving faster, to them not showing up engaged in their work, all those sorts of things. And so if I could give someone some advice based on what we're seeing in the data, it's the onboarding process is critical. For many frontline workers, they call it a stumbling block, not a springboard to success. And so if we're not setting them up from the very early days on how to be successful, then we're missing out. And the other piece I would really emphasize is the importance of communication, transparency, communication, getting the data to them, the information they need to do their work. They feel like they're in the dark. And yes, they may be throwing boxes in a warehouse, they may be serving a customer at midnight with some tacos, I don't know, but they shouldn't necessarily have to feel like they are out on an island by themselves. And when they feel like their manager and their employer is giving them information, communicating well, they're more likely to say they feel like they belong, they're respected and appreciated. They're more likely to say, I'm planning on staying at this company, I don't have any plans to quit. So you start to see some good things come out of there that align with their performance and their longevity at the company. And it comes down to just being open, treating them like humans. Yeah. And I don't know why that's a novel idea. I don't know, but it is.
Why do you think, did anything come up in your research? Why do you think that companies have this approach to frontline? Because they're really the ones doing most of the heavy lifting.
They're literally doing the heavy lifting. Someone right now is picking up something heavy and I don't have to do it. And I'm grateful to that person for doing that work. I think part of it is we get stuck in the mindset of how we've always done it. So one of the early HR jobs that I had was at a company that did direct care for the developmentally disabled and the mentally ill. So really tough manual work, serving and taking care of these clients who often couldn't take care of themselves. And the people that worked there made $7.75 an hour. I mean, it was not high paying. And so turnover was wild. And anytime someone would bring up an idea of how to do something better, how to innovate, whether it's an HR practice or a business practice, it was always kind of like, well, that's not how we do things here. And they're willing to just settle for where they were. And every company's not like that. I know there are champions out there listening to this right now saying, hey, listen, I'm pushing, but they're not listening. So if you are one of those leaders that's pushing and they're not listening or you're not getting that across, you've got to convey that in a way that matters to your leaders in the business. So maybe they talk about your competitiveness in the industry. Maybe they talk about your ability as that company. Our mission is to serve more clients, take care of them. Well, if we did this thing, we could serve them more fully. We could take care of their needs better. If you're in the private sector, I want to be more competitive. I want to be more innovative. We want stability in this wacky environment where we want some more stability and more predictability. Talk about those things and then connect back into the people practices that are going to lead to that, how onboarding matters to that, how we hire creates more predictability in the business. So that's what I would definitely encourage anyone who's struggling with that or trying to push the envelope a little bit. That's my best advice for how to do that.
Cool. So I think in general, candidates have distrust with companies, but I think with frontline workers, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably big.
Yes.
Or bigger. So how can companies go about like really building that true trust between frontline workers and the company?
Large suitcases full of cash. Yeah. One of the things that stunned me, here's one of the stats that stunned me. So in the data on our hiring today, we just asked about how candidates perceive an employer's brand, how a company conveys itself before you're hired. Fewer than 1 in 5 people said that it's fully honest. The other 4 out of 5 are like, it's sort of or not at all honest or believable. And that kind of environment, as you said, like trust is a real problem there. So one way to cut through that, use employee referrals. When when candidates say that a company uses employee referrals, they're 7 times more likely to say that they would likely trust that company because people are talking about advocating that aren't getting paid to do it, or they might get a little something, but they're advocating because they believe in the company, what they're doing. So that's one way to get across that. The other piece is something that's so simple that when people hear this, they're going to be like, of course, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's being responsive, responding to candidates, letting them know what's going on. I was talking to a leader yesterday here at the conference, and he said, we have a no text breakup policy. When we say no to you, you get a phone call. If you've talked to us already, okay? Yeah. Now, if it's you just applied, we can just let them go potentially. But if someone has talked to one of us, we call them back to say, thank you so much. This is not a fit for you, but we really hope you'll come back again in the future. And as a candidate, that feels different than someone never sending you anything or getting you just a thanks but no thanks sort of email. It feels different, right? It fundamentally feels different. And I know we can't talk about feelings in HR. That's not allowed. But it does feel different. And you see that come out in candidate experience scores, how they rate the company on Glassdoor or everywhere else. So those things do ultimately roll up into things that matter and have an impact.
I think when I hear that employee referrals are what like really make people trust more, I go back and I think as someone who's worked in employer branding for so long, we're just not telling the truth. They probably believe in a referral because their buddy is telling them what it's really like to work there.
So I've got something to add to that. So yes, and that's true. We also ask about kinds of video candidates want to see in the hiring process, okay? Not video interviews, but the kind of video they want to see. And what they tell us is the least thing they want to see is someone in HR or recruiting, okay? They don't, I'm hearing from you enough, no more. Right above that is that very polished company culture video. Here's what it's like to work here. Here's our history. And they don't really care that much. What they want to see most is someone like them that's doing the job or a hiring manager that can give them some sense of what it's like to work there, even if it's shot on a phone and it's just this kind of grainy, that's not great lighting, whatever else. they're okay with that over that very polished video because it feels authentic. It feels real to what you said. That's why referrals work, and that's why that works so well.
I love that you said that because I say this a lot, like a lot. If you look at my content or anything, and I think people think that I say it because I own a video content agency.
The data are there.
Exactly. So I'm so glad that Ben has no idea any of that I do that. It's not like it's real. Like people don't care about your polished video or HR, and they don't want to hear from you.
Yes.
So I love that. I love that you said that.
All right.
So we're seeing candidates use AI a lot. I'm calling it we're in the bot versus bot era.
Yes.
I think.
AI-mageddon, maybe? There we go.
I like that one too.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyzed a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you.
So how far are companies, or how far behind are companies with being able to address this?
So I talked to a large enterprise company on a public webinar, public forum, one of the biggest companies in the world. And she was going through the company's TA strategy for AI. And she said, we have a platform strategy for how we use it across these of our platforms and tools. We have an individual recruiter strategies for how either one of us might use it to be more productive in our day-to-day work. And we have an AI strategy for how our candidates are using it, what we're going to do about that. I said, ooh, tell me more about that. She said, oh, we don't actually know what we're going to do yet. It's so new. We're not sure how we're going to respond and react because it's a big problem and it's increasing. One company I talked to said they used to get 20,000 resumes a month. Global enterprise company, 20,000 resumes a month was their normal sort of history. They're now getting 20,000 resumes every 2.5 days. And so that level of volume means a human simply cannot. There's no physical way someone can do that. And candidates are using AI for interviewing, for all kinds of creative things, for automatically applying to jobs, for these answering assessment questions, trying to cheat the assessment. They're using all these things. And so employers that are trying to solve for that are trying to get creative, and it's a big, big issue. So I talked to a company recently, and she said, our hiring managers, as part of the hiring process, we ask candidates explicitly, please don't use AI to do this because we're going to get your actual writing samples and stuff. Some people still do, okay? So anyone that's using AI in the hiring process gets kicked out because they explicitly asked them not to do it. So they put into their job descriptions, Millennium Falcon expert, or, expert at making bacon, like random things like that. And if those show up in the resume, they get kicked out because they know the person just scraped it, put it in a ChatGPT, rewrote the resume. They're using these tools to do it. So they're using that as a filter to catch some people. I'm sorry for any Star Wars fans who get kicked out because they're big Millennium Falcon experts, but they're trying to find ways to get around that because it's such a new problem. No one has a good answer other than, hey, if you want to prove it's not a deep fake video, wave your hands a little bit so you know it's a real person, not just a head and shoulders video piece. So it's a new problem. There's not a lot of answers for it other than, can we get someone in person? Can we meet up? And we're seeing that human touch really taking a higher priority, higher value. That's why referrals also play a role in this, because if I refer you, the company knows that you're probably a real person.
Yeah.
Okay. Not just a sophisticated bot. You're a real person. I have validated everyone. She is truly real. And so we know that, right? We cut through some of the other weirdness and fear and concern that AI could bring if we get a real person in the mix.
Do you think that the approach that companies, and I know it's early, are taking is the right approach? Because are we really fighting against something that's going to continue happening?
So I would encourage anyone who's listening, here's the practical takeaway from this, because we could talk about this in like big circles. You need to have your philosophy on what AI usage from candidates means. You need to know what you're going to do about that. Are you cool with it? That's enterprising, that's smart, very good sophistication, great. Are you like the other company said, listen, we need to see what you're doing, you're writing, because you're going to be writing, interacting with clients on a daily basis. We need to make sure you can do that when the power's out or you don't have your phone and you can do this. I used to work for a government contractor. We had secure environments. There were no phones allowed in the building. I mean, how are we going to do these kind of things? So those companies need to know what their philosophy is and know where the line is. Hey, listen, you can use it for applying, sure. But when it comes to the assessment part, no, absolutely not. And what we see in our actual research is when we ask employers, where is it cheating for candidates? Number one answer is using it to answer assessment questions. That doesn't tell me what you can do. It tells me what ChatGPT can do. But when it gets to, can you practice interview questions and role play? Sure, that's brilliant. Absolutely do that all day long. So you show up polished in the interview and I get the best version of you to actually interview versus the one who's a little nervous and a little fluttery and not sure you're going to answer the questions well. So there's a range there, and companies need to figure out where they draw that line and what their philosophy is before it comes to the moment and you just respond reactively.
So talking a little about AI, but from a different side, right? Okay. So we're seeing a lot of AI and automation. We know this is happening. It's 2025. How is the C-suite like looking at talent and like evaluating? Are there any blind spots? Because we've seen the news. We've seen the people say, if AI we're only hiring if AI can't do the job and these things like that.
Yes.
Are there any blind spots that the C-suite has when it comes to AI and automation and talent?
I talked to an executive last night, and he asked me not to identify him when I tell this story because it blew my mind. He worked for an organization. They were going through a lot of change. He was the CHRO, and they added a bunch of other responsibilities to his plate, and he just simply didn't have time to do all those other jobs. So he said, I want to try an experiment. I'm going to start opening my email. Whatever G Suite pops in there as the first autoresponder, I will click the first autoresponder message that it gives me. And he said, how long do you think it took me before I had to stop doing that and actually start responding to messages? I was like, I don't know, 4 hours maybe? I'm like, sure, 9 weeks. He said, for 9 weeks, I responded to every message I got with that first auto-responded message. And if it came back and it was not clear to somebody, they could follow back up again and they might have to respond. But for 9 weeks, he used that first one. He said, executives think that everybody else is at risk of AI when their jobs are so structured, so predictable, that their jobs are the ones potentially most at risk. And that's a part that they're not talking about that's concerning to me, because they're thinking about everybody else and what that could look like. They're thinking about getting rid of their engineering or getting rid of legal or getting rid of recruiters.
Yes.
And they may be the ones on the chopping block potentially.
I love that story.
Yes. Terrifying and amazing all at the same time.
I would have never guessed 9 weeks.
No.
It's kind of like, he was like, oh yeah, probably a day. I don't know.
Yes.
Wow. That is amazing. So I'm going to do a little thing I love to do in my podcast.
Okay.
But I'm going to do a podcast version of it.
Okay.
So a few rapid fire questions, just whatever comes to mind first.
Sharks. Okay, you haven't started yet. All right, let's do this.
Now I have to figure out a way how to incorporate a question where sharks could be the answer. So what's one mindset shift that has helped you succeed as a researcher and as a leader?
I think really just asking a lot of questions, being willing to be curious, being willing to not take, well, that's how we've always done it, as acceptable. I was pushing that boundary even back when I worked as an HR professional, in my first jobs even. And I learned that some cultures, some companies like don't ask questions or like you get shut down, and others are accepting of that. And that's where I was thriving. And now I get a chance to lead research. So every day I'm asking questions. But that's my biggest piece of advice for anyone else that wants to be successful in HR is be willing to be curious. There's data from Harvard Business Review that shows that people who are curious are less likely to be biased, because when someone's like, oh, those people are all that way, the curious person's like, really? I wonder how they know that. I wonder if that's true. How do you prove it? And they start pushing back against those preconceived notions. And I love that.
Amazing, amazing. So what's one HR tech trend that everyone's talking about that you think is actually overhyped?
Agents everywhere. Agents are coming for all of us. Yes, agents are a real thing, but I think everyone's talking about them. It's the newest lingo. Everyone's talking about, even if it's not, and people get wrapped around the axle, right? Get all bent out of shape. Is that really an agent or not? From the very beginning, I wrote Artificial Intelligence for HR back in 2018. Okay, so almost 10 years ago now. And from then, I said, do not get caught up in defining if it's machine learning or what else. Focus on the problem you're trying to solve. And from a recruiting context, is can we screen candidates? Can we match them to the right jobs? Can we hire the right person? From a benefits, can we communicate our benefits in a way that people actually understand and appreciate? That's what I would say is go back to stop getting wrapped around the whole agent this or that, go to the business case, the use case, and focus on those pieces.
Amazing. And last question for this section, what's been one of the proudest moments of your career?
Oh my goodness. You know what? Yesterday, I don't know if it's the proudest, but it was pretty darn good. So we invited our advisory board. Last year, it was like a last minute thing. We had 3 people show up because I had waited till too late. Yesterday, we had 15 people, executives and talent, HR, compensation, learning from across the country in this room, sharing the things they were excited about, things that they were trying to solve, the big problems they're looking at. And to me, that is what I've been trying to do. I've done a lot of virtually many times, but to get them together, that excites me because they're the people that are solving the big problems. And I'm using their inputs, their ideas to help fuel the research so we can help spread those ideas to other companies. So I'm so excited about that.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Anything that I didn't ask that you think listeners should know about any of the topics that we've talked about today?
The only thing that I'll say is I said earlier, it's a wacky time. It is a truly strange and difficult time. The data we have on HR leaders, they tell us that doing it right now is harder than it's been in the past. And I would just give them the encouragement that the research we have, the trends we're looking at, says that the future of HR is a bright one. There are opportunities, there are ways to add new value, there are things the business needs from you, your workforce needs from you, your managers, God love them, they need something from HR, okay? They need help. And I just want to give the encouragement for anyone out there doing that work that you're doing the right things. It's hard, it's difficult, but it's worthy and valuable. Don't give up.
Hey, where can listeners connect with you?
LHRA.io is the website for Lighthouse Research and Advisory. You can also find the podcast at We're Only Human. And on LinkedIn, I'm always sharing something about the research or something new that's going on with the team. So happy to connect any of those places.
Perfect. So this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so happy you were here today.
Thank you so much for the great conversation. Sorry you couldn't work Sharks in to the very end, but thank you for helping to spread the good news, the good stories that are going to help all the leaders out there do their work better.
Amazing. Thank you.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.